Night Owl is currently recruiting participants for an online dreaming experiment. All it takes is 5 minute survey every day and following specific instructions about your dream journaling. If you're listening to this, you should definitely sign up and participate. I'll be participating, and you can find us in the Discord, and you can also find more information on the Reddit thread.
Hello, everybody. I'm Night Owl, or at least that's what I like to be called online. So I tried really hard not to reveal any personal information about myself, given the nature of our anonymous online lucid dreaming experiment. So I'd like to just start by telling you a little bit about myself and what got me interested in the world of lucid dreaming. And for me, it all starts with my intro to psych course. So when I started studying psychology, I became obsessed with the course material. I never knew I could actually study something that could have such real life applications. So one day I was attending a course and we reached chapter 4. I'll never forget. Chapter 4 was Intro to Dreams and Sleep. And my professor made a statement I couldn't possibly agree with. He said that every single night, everybody dreams. And being the arrogant student I was at the time, I could not help but jump out of my chair and wave my hand around frantically. No. There's no way. I don't dream. You can't tell me different. And before I knew it, there was like an insurrection on our hands. The entire class was just, in an uproar. And so the professor quickly, isolated me and made me his own personal case study. He actually appealed directly to, my academic nature. He said, well, I got an extra credit assignment for you. And I couldn't turn it down. All I had to do was keep a dream journal for 30 days and I'd get 10% on my final grade. I took him up on it and he gave me some really simple instructions. It was just to keep a spare composition book beneath my pillow. And the next morning, just write whatever I remember. And so the next morning came and went and I didn't remember anything. So I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be easy money. And so I didn't want to seem like I didn't complete the dream journal. So I wrote in it, did not remember anything, like smiley face, like told you so. Second night came and went and still no dream recall. But then the third night, something interesting happened. And I began to have these fleeting images of my childhood home or I knew my father was there, for example, but I didn't really have any concrete details. Before I knew it, I was filling out entire pages of this notebook from a few hours of dreaming. And I really couldn't wrap my mind around the amount of experience that occurred over the course of one night's sleep. And of course, I went back to this professor, and ironically, his name was Mr. Wright. If you're watching, thank you for what you've done for me. Okay. You inspired me in a way that most teachers wouldn't care, to even entertain. I continued pursuing my dreams because I eventually started drawing parallels to the real world. In my dream analysis, I realized that most often what you dream about reflects what you're experiencing in daily life. And next thing I know, I was establishing common themes and recognizing dream signs. And then when I was in the real world, sort of experiencing these things, I would stop and be a little bit more mindful of where I was and what I was doing because it was becoming hard to differentiate, the waking world from the dream world. And then something happened that even this professor couldn't have anticipated. One night, or actually it was an afternoon, I was taking a nap after, a long, hard day of high school and decided, that my father had to be in the adjacent room doing some laundry. And I came to that conclusion whilst asleep because I heard that signature gong and I just knew he was in there. But I didn't wake. I didn't open my eyes. I didn't move at all. And before I knew it, I found myself shrouded in darkness. Then I realized I couldn't move and I started to freak out a little bit. So my first instinct was to look around and try to orient myself, but it was pitch black. And then I started to, kind of shake and I felt like I was bound to this really uncomfortable square chair, like all right angles, like this, and the only thing I could feel in the dream that I could move because I was dreaming was my wrists. I felt like I was flailing my wrists. I was bound here and at the ankles, and I was just stuck. It was almost like my brain started to rationalize what I had come to find out was sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis happens to us every single night. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know it's a very natural phenomenon. It may not be so natural for me because I'm actually a sleepwalker and talker, and I've acted out some really weird things and scared my parents more than one time about being active in the night. But in this instance, I guess paralysis decided to do its thing, and my conscious mind decided to do its. So I started to freak out, and I looked around, and I actually felt this presence start to cave in around me. And I'm kind of getting a little scared just thinking about it because one thing about lucid dreaming is it knows your deepest, darkest fears and all your secrets. And for whatever reason, this really scared me. And so as I was panicking, I realized the only thing I could do was focus on what I could do, which was move my wrists. And before I knew it, this motion eventually led to my pinky actually tapping my bed in real life. So I started to feel just the slight wrap of my pinky finger on my bed sheets. And before I know it, my hand followed. And then I rolled completely out of my bed, hit my head, panting, in nervous excitement. And I actually started to yell at my father. I was like, "What's wrong with you?" I was screaming for help. You didn't wake me up. What's going on? And he was like, "Dude, what's your problem? You were asleep. You didn't say a word." And I'm thinking to myself, I could have died. From that moment on, I decided I was never going to feel that helpless again. I was going to do anything in my power I could to understand what had just happened to me. And then, more than that, wake myself up if I needed to in the future. So, ironically, Mr. Wright, when I told him about this, he didn't really necessarily understand it. And I come to find out at a really early age in my lucid dreaming, experience that not many people do know about these phenomena. It's not very common, although it has been studied for quite some time now, right? Since the 70s, it's been like scientific fact. There's really, if you talk to the average person, even your family and friends, it can be quite isolating, right? And so I did what I could to explore avenues of research and joined a bunch of online social media groups, just trying to gain better understanding for my own purposes of, sleep paralysis and sleepwalking and eventually lucidity. So I would like to share my first lucid dreaming story, if that's okay with you.
Of course, I would love to hear it. It's always like people's aha moments of like, oh my God, like this is crazy. That's the
No,
best for me. No,
nope,
not
it's
good.
not that cool. Like, let
Well,
me
I
just
still want to
say,
hear
like,
about it.
like I just listened to your previous episode with Robert Wagner, which is like I was fanboying like on the way here. I was
Oh,
listening. I
me
was like, oh
too.
my god, like it's him. And that's one of my favorite
He's so
books.
sweet. Yeah.
My first lucid dream happened as a result of all of this, let's say, inner exploration. Right, my dream journal became like a coveted piece of me, and actually, it didn't just stop with my dreams. I started journaling in real life. I couldn't believe the things I was writing down, ideas I could extrapolate and like take action on and organize in like a linear way and appeal to my visual nature. I have one side for the waking life, one side for the dream world, and the two were just both sides of the same coin. Like on one side I would write completely normal, and then I would flip it completely upside down, so you could never read it front to back. You would have to turn it the opposite orientation, and I think that's a good metaphor for how I look at walking the line between waking life and the dream
Yeah, I
world.
love that. Like a reflection, kind of.
Yes,
I
yes,
like that.
exactly. Again, I'm very visual, so like those things appeal to me personally. And with lucid dreaming, it's the most visual experience you could ever have. It's like everybody says it's the best virtual reality software. So my first lucid dream was not that cool. Like his was cool. That's why I brought that up. Like him, like becoming a ball of energy and awareness, just in this microscopic field of energy. It was like a beautifully put explanation. For me, I was just at work doing my mundane everyday activities, which more often than not, our dreams are. They could be these fanciful fantasies that are filled with magic and wonder, and this was just me at work. And what really drew me to lucidity was I was going about my business as I normally would, and I realized as I was greeting one of the customers, right, he stopped, turned, and looked at me, and I recognized him as a celebrity. And come to find out, it was Nicolas Cage in the flesh, right there in my dream. Okay, I don't know why it was Nicolas Cage. Actually, I have an idea. Being from the Reddit community, it was like that's the text version of that forum, and then in its infancy, it didn't have the ability to integrate images. So Imager was the sister company of Reddit. So I was always on Imager close to bedtime. I mean, I was trying my best to get to the front page with any means necessary. My comments, I wanted to get to the top. My posts, I was just so engaged in the content there that I became very interested in what people deemed front page worthy, right? And for whatever reason, Nicolas Cage became somewhat of an internet phenomenon through Imager. I remembered specifically seeing him on Imager that night, and then he, sure enough, found himself into my dream. But when he turned and looked at me, I had this, you know, celebrity moment. I was like, oh my gosh, it's just like Robert Wagner. It's Nicolas Cage. What are you doing here? Why are you here? And he just looked at me and smiled that Nicolas Cage smile, and he didn't say a word, nothing, completely stale faced me. And I just thought, okay, well, that's weird. If you've ever said anything to somebody and they straight up ignored you, like give you the silent treatment, it's very unsettling. And I guess being a dream character as he was, he exhibited those same qualities and just gave me a little indication that this was not reality. This was a dream. And the smile was all I needed. I actually immediately turned to a coworker. And the first thing everybody wants to do is, oh my God, this is a dream. This is a dream. And nobody cared about that. So I thought, well, you don't care. This is a dream. I'll prove it to you. And I sort of like looked at him and I was like, I'm going to turn you into a cat. And I like really believed it. Like I imagined it. If I think there was a book I used to read when I was young that helped with this. Have you ever heard of Metamorphs? Does that ring a bell? I don't even know if that's what
I
it's
don't
called.
think so.
Probably showing my age. But it was the
I'm
cool part
old,
about
but I
these.
haven't heard of it.
The cool thing about these Metamorph books is they had a little picture in the corner. So it was all about these people who could perform metamorphosis into different animals. And you would flip the bottom corner of the page and it would go from a cat into a person and back to a cat. And so the book itself was a very visual representation of what metamorphosis could look like. And I had that ingrained in my memory. So I could literally just visualize it. And I believed it and it happened. And after that, I was like off to the races. I was like, man, what do I want to do? I was not prepared at all. And as I tried to make my way out the door, as so often happens in dreams, there's this subconscious faculty that wants to pull you back to sleep, that wants to take you away from lucidity and make you forget everything you were just thinking about and just go along
The
with the
dream
plot.
police.
The dream
That's what I
police, they're
call it.
real. Yes, it's true. There's a song about that too, I think. But the dream police in this instance appeared, in the form of more Hollywood culture. For whatever reason, I guess it was around the same time the Dark Knight series came out. I went to walk out the door, and who greeted me other than the Joker, like the Heath Ledger version of the Joker? And I guess something about his character really kind of settled into my subconscious because he was the manifestation of pure evil in this dream because he stopped there. And I confronted him. I was like feeling confident with my abilities, right? First lucid dream, you can't mess with me. And I said to him, I was like, you can't stop me from leaving. You're just a dream character. And this was like a semi-conscious dream character. Like Nicolas Cage was an NPC. This guy was the real deal. And he looked at me and he goes, you think that'll help you here?
Ooh.
And something about that just didn't sit right with me. Like I was going to slide past him and just go about my way. And then I was a little scared, like, okay, maybe I should go a different way. And he just slowly crept towards me. And all of a sudden I started to forget it was a dream because I was overtaken by the emotion of fear. And again, your brain knows your deepest, darkest fears, desires, secrets, all of it. You're sort of exploring your own innermost consciousness. So there's no hiding from it. And the only thing I could do to confront this evil villain was to imagine again a shackle, like a ball and chain, to keep him bound to the floor so I could just literally slide past him enough. And he wildly waved this blade and tried to slash and get at me any way he could. And I just had to like dodge it. It was very convincing. But I made it out into the real world and took off in flight. And I was very impressed with the quality of realness. I could not believe how convincing the entire experience was. And from that point on, I was hooked. There was no turning back. Lucid dreaming was just a part of my life now.
That's awesome. That's pretty good dream control for your first lucid dream. I don't know what you're talking about. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's a little lame. It was at work.
Not lame.
And like it's full of these, Hollywood. Why Nicolas Cage, right? What the hell is going on?
Hey, there was a meaning for you. That's deep because like it gave you your first lucid dream, so it makes sense.
He'll always hold a special place in my heart. Like,
exactly.
I'm not going to show you, but I do have Nicolas Cage right here.
You see, that's where the
his
personal
face.
dream
Yeah.
language comes in. That's part of your personal dream language.
But yeah, that's sort of how I got started. And again, there was just never enough information for me to feel satisfied. I just, because then, I had such a good experience the first time. I didn't know how blessed I was with dream control, right? And then I realized that you're not always in control. Sometimes
Yep.
you're just a first person sort of like observer,
Yeah.
and you're along for the ride. It's like you're just stuck with this tunnel vision, and you're like looking at this world like, all right, where am I going? What's going on now? Like almost if you look at it through your phone camera, and that's how you
Yeah.
experience your entire world. Very limited field of view. That's what has led me throughout the past decade to find people like you. And it's so refreshing to have content creators who care passionately about furthering our understanding in this field. Like so many people just parrot the same things over and over or want to financially profit from this. There should be no gatekeepers when it comes to consciousness. If we're ever
Exactly.
going to make it to the next level and discover new things, then we have to work together. And that's what's led me to, creating the largest online ongoing lucid dreaming experiment,
I love it.
which I like to call it. That may not be an official name, and somebody's going to fact check me and say, "Oh, there was this other thing they did once." But look,
Hey,
we're trying to make it a
it's
reality,
marketing here. You can put any title you want to clickbait. People do it all the time.
and I by no means am utilizing this experiment in order to further my career. It's completely a passion of mine. I'm not sponsored by any institution or organization. I'm one person. I'm a human. I'm prone to human error. And what I think has made the experiment successful so far is the outpouring of support I've received from the community and people like you who are just interested in what could this look like, right? Let's just entertain the idea that this is the largest online experiment. How can we make that work, right? And
Yeah.
so it started with just a question and my own personal interest. So over the last decade, I've been highly interested in mastering myself, right? Because you can't pour from an empty cup. You need to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So I've sort of figured out what worked for me, and time again, as I, come and go, uh, into the field of lucid dreaming, and I focus on it, and then I, get caught up in life, which is okay. Things come up, and we need to shift our focus to the real world, right? It's always important to keep it in perspective. Like there is a real world out there, guys. You shouldn't be trying to sleep 12 hours a day just so you can become lucid, right? It's not that important unless you can find a way to integrate your internal experiences with what you experience in real life as well. And that's always been the most important thing for me is how do we
Yep.
better integrate, those two realities. It's led me down a spiritual journey. I wouldn't consider myself religious. I would consider myself spiritual, right? And that in and of itself could be controversial in the context of science, right? But I'm no scientist, so I can talk about my own personal beliefs all day long. But as long as I don't allow it to influence the nature of this study, I discovered a concept called syncretism, which is that sort of the idea that religions share similar beliefs, and the only difference is geological location, time, and language, right? If you consider those three barriers to understanding, right, then maybe we are just kind of all talking about the same thing in a different way. And I know that could be considered controversial as well. And it did lead me to exploring Buddhism, which I consider to be one of the most practical religions. Buddhism isn't about Buddha, right? It's not about one person, although that's how it started. The story is that Siddhartha Gautama was a prince who never seen the outside world, and he wanted to, sort of get out and understand his loyal subjects on a more personal level. And he was amazed with the level of poverty and suffering that, was just outside of his palace walls. He had lived this guarded life and completely oblivious to how people really lived. And he sort of took the concept of life is suffering, and he began to sacrifice himself in a way that allowed him to better, connect, I guess, with his community. And what he found was that we are all Buddhas, right? We are all sleepwalking our way through reality, and we have the ability to wake up to the true nature of our inner being. And there is no one Buddha. We are all Buddha, right? So that's sort of what got me interested in that. I was like, So now I got this, interest in lucid dreaming. There's a whole philosophy, let's say, right, on awakening to the true nature of reality. And the most practical thing I can take away from that was meditation, which allowed me to start grounding myself and really start having these like euphoric experiences through nothing more than just sitting or walking or, eating mindfully, right? A ton of different ways you can apply that, but it started to really resonate with my already existing lucid dreaming practice. And so, jack of all trades, master of none. I would consider myself a jack of lucid dreaming and a master of none, right? You'd be the queen, right? So you're like way up here. I'm like just like a little bit lower. But no, honestly, I've never claimed mastery. Honestly, very
Same.
rarely do I even explain myself as advanced, because the only qualifier for being advanced for me is if you have success for yourself. And so that's how I've defined that metric. And I don't
Yeah.
claim authority over anybody. I just like to speak from my personal experiences and then to the facts.
And that makes sense. I mean, I would consider us both advanced lucid dreamers, but yeah, I don't self-proclaim myself as a master or anything. Like my goal, I resonate a lot with your journey because really my goal is just to open up conversation, to help people that started where I was when I had my first lucid dream or when I wanted to learn more about it, help them learn and get to this level and build their own practice, find what works for them, that kind of stuff.
To be honest, I know that I discovered your podcast, and from there I could tell you were just the most conversational content creator around this subject, which matters to me so much because I can't talk to anybody about it. Like listening to you feels like, having a friend that you can explain your dreams to, and they'll help you understand what that means in the context of the real world. And again, that's just been so important. And even focusing on this is what's the point of this entirely amazing internal experience, and you just have to keep it to yourself. So I've always sought out a sense of community. It sort of led me down this path where again, I started on Reddit, and now there's a community. I think when I first joined, it was close to 200,000 people. And in 2023, they're pushing 500,000 people. So in the last 10 years, it's over doubled in size. And there's always been an outpouring of newcomers to that particular forum. And so, whereas I'm what I consider to be advanced because I've attained lucidity and I'm working on, mastering my own skills for my own reasons, there's always people on there asking the same questions over and over again. Is lucid dreaming real? Is the big one that I can't
Yeah.
believe still exists today. Like there's so many people in my family who swear they don't dream.
Yep.
They
That's
just
why I
they
recycle content. I say the same thing on TikTok over and over the course of months because there's always new people talking about, I don't dream. I haven't dreamed in 10 years, so it doesn't work for me. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I used to be you. If you're listening to this and you think,
Exactly.
is it possible? Like, can I do this? Yeah, anybody can do it. I wholly
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah.
And it's taken me down a path where I started as this online persona called the Night Owl. Right. I started taking these newcomers right here. I said, look, I got this space in my life. I got free time. I'll tell you about my own experiences. You can come, just
Love it.
take you under my wing. You can stay there if you want, or when you're ready to fly on your own, that's fine too. And it led me to just being like a comment warrior. I was just all over the internet, like trying to answer this question, trying to answer that question. And I was repeating myself, like you said, so many times. It wasn't worth how I was spending my energy. So I was thinking, unconventionally, how can I introduce this subject to people in a way that, the target population would understand? And it led me to creating what I refer to as the lucid dreaming augmented reality game. And augmented reality games are sort of like treasure hunts in the real world, right? It's like it started off of a concept of you are sleepwalking through life and you don't know it. You're dreaming right now. Like whoever's listening to this podcast, like take a
Do a
moment,
reality check real
do a
quick.
reality check. Yep. Thank you. See, that's how we actually care about this, because once you
Every
get so
time
good at
somebody
lucid
says that, I'm
dreaming,
like,
I got you. Once you get so good at lucid dreaming, it becomes scary real. And you need to learn how to differentiate. Obviously, for mental health reasons, it's worth a disclaimer. I always say anybody with a history of mental health needs to seriously consider whether lucid dreaming is for them, because it can help you for sure, but it also can lead to feelings of dissociation is the biggest one, right? Because now you're feeling like separate of yourself and you're not really sure of, is this real? Is it not? So like, word of caution, always
Yeah.
be mindful of your intention. You shouldn't try to escape reality. You should try to learn more about yourself and how you can better understand reality. That's the way I look at it. So you are
Yeah.
dreaming right now. Like, I can prove it to you. You just have to take my word for it for now, and like follow me on this journey, because there's these shadow people who are always lurking around every corner trying to pull you back to unconsciousness. But I'm here to help you. So if you want to wake up, come along for this ride. And it started with a series of daily challenges, and they would have 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced. And like the first one, for example, would be, this is a controversial one: choose your totem, right? Like, have something, a physical reminder you can carry on you at all times, and it'll serve the purpose of reminding you that you are dreaming. And then don't assume. That's the key thing. Don't assume you're dreaming, right? I'm not here to make you question reality without proving it, right? Don't take my word for it. Who am I? After all, I'm just some online persona. So what I did was I grabbed something. Let me show you. I got like a stone, right? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
It's got one smooth surface, like a window,
It's
where you can see
pretty.
the internal structure. Thank you. And it's like a touchstone, something smooth. I can run my fingers across and keep me grounded, right? There's nothing more grounding than rocks, pun
Yeah,
intended.
that's a
Okay.
great thing to do. I had one of my students use like a stone for her reality checks, and she got her first lucid dream from that.
So that's like kind of like how I started, right? And then it was a bunch of other things that I introduced people to, but again, in maybe controversial or unconventional ways. And I think I had great results. I mean, it built up my following to, a few hundred people, which I was proud of. It really didn't matter to me the number, because literally, if just one person came to me and said, "You helped me become lucid, thank you," then it was worth it. And
Yeah.
many people did. And so I felt immense gratification from that, and took a break for a long time. It's actually been a couple years since I've done that. And everybody, would come to me and say, "When are we doing it again? And it's like, I don't really know if I want to do it again.
Mhm.
Like, I can maybe reapproach it, but like, to me, there's something left to be desired, and it was that people didn't really give it the credibility it deserved. Like, even though I had
Yeah.
results, it didn't matter, because it was just pseudoscience. Like you said, it's a game. Have fun
Mm-hmm.
with it. Play around with the ideas.
Exactly, because
Don't take
video
it so
gaming and lucid
seriously.
dreaming go together too. Like people who play video games are more likely to have lucid dreams and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, that was part of like my background. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've been an internet warrior for years now, and then just recently I got back into lucid dreaming because I have a 1-year-old baby at home, and sleep has been sparse. So as her schedules become more consistent, right, I've been able to sleep more. If you're a parent, if you're going through it, trust me, it will get better. It will be okay. Actually, some people say it never gets better, but you got to have hope, right? And there's been no better experience than being a first-time parent. It's so important for me to walk that fine line between spending so much time on my dreams and the internet and helping people, and also spending time at home and taking a break and enjoying my family. So just always remember that. Just know that recently I've fell back into the habit of like, I want to start lucid dreaming again. I can sleep some more. Let's do it. And again, I know what to do. Like, what to do. Like, if you get away from the routine of it, and you decide, hey, let's get back into recording my dreams and analyzing dream signs and lucidity, then you can do it. You just have to put in the work, right? And that's the hard part for me, has always been, the mental cleanse. You can't lucid dream if you're living your regular everyday life in a state of haze, right? If you're taking drugs, if you're consuming caffeine or heavy meals late at night, these things are not going to lend themselves to quality sleep. And I always recommend Andrew Huberman. You know who that is, Mina? He's great. He's like
I don't think
clinical
so.
doctor who focuses. He has his own podcast, but he focuses on dreams and all the science behind it. So like, I've always got good information just listening to a doctor speak
Cool. I'm
about
gonna
it.
check it out.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it, because
Cool.
it's not, it doesn't have to do with dreams. It's about
Yeah.
sleep, right?
Nice.
And everybody has to remember, you can't dream unless you sleep, right?
Yeah.
So and it's actually, just as bad if you sleep too much, if you don't sleep enough. And a lot of people don't realize that. They're just like, I'm going to sleep 20 hours and I'm down to be lucid. It doesn't work that way.
I know, right?
And so when I started getting back into it, I decided I need to, scratch this itch I have for helping the community, sharing what I know in a way that can, positively affect others, and make it more fact based, right? I took that
Mhm.
criticism from the game and I said, look, I'm not going to deal with that anymore. I want to shut these critics up. for lack of a better term. It was very inspiring for me to think, okay, well, where are my weaknesses? If this was a debate and, you're the spiritual person and I'm the scientific person, right? Let's just entertain the idea of one way is better than the other, because I don't think that's true. I think it's both, right? Just like nature and
Yeah.
nurture, we need to sort of, think about both things, because it could just be a language barrier, right? These metaphysical principles could be, you know, ways of describing things that aren't necessarily understood, because there's so much to learn about consciousness still. A good example I can think of is stones, right? If you know anything about crystals and gemstones, that's a very metaphysical field in and of itself. But I don't claim they have any magical properties. I mean, think about it this way. This rock right here is older than any single person who's listening to this podcast right now, and probably older than your parents and their parents, and for generations before that. And it's got, let's call it, data incorporated to its crystalline structure. But the weight that I really put on this little rock I keep in my pocket is entirely based on the intention that I place with it. That this will serve as a physical reminder, yes, of my intention to question my reality, to do a critical state test, to ground myself, to not be so airheaded and like internal, to think that, wait a minute, I can stop, I can look at this, I can study it, examine it, I can feel it, I can feel its weight, I can close my eyes and know it's there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like a consciousness enhancer.
Yeah, almost like the power of affirmation, or let's consider the power of suggestion, right? I mean, the placebo effect is so strong that if you, whoever's listening, heard me earlier when I said you are dreaming, if you believe that and you carry that attitude with you into the dream tonight, Amina, you and I both, right now, we can become lucid. Again, like if I become lucid 2 nights in a row, I'm gonna call you at like 4 o'clock in the morning, freaking out. Like, I've never done this before. I've had success with lucidity, but again, it comes and goes in waves. And so I wanted to take away all the metaphysical and spiritual beliefs that I may have personally and start to satisfy these scientific approaches. And so the experiment really started as an idea posted on Reddit in the form of a poll. And it was as simple as my hook, line, and sinker. Who here wants to be a part of the largest ongoing online lucid dreaming experiment ever? First of all, Reddit shunned me for such a long title and such a clickbaity title. Again, it's something that happens a lot. It happens a lot in this field, unfortunately. And if you know anything about dark psychology, right, you sort of have to understand these principles to not be affected by it. And one thing I'm trying to do is shed light in the darkness, right? Because this is such a ambiguous field of study, shrouded in mystery and discredited by academics everywhere, but it's scientific fact. Like, you dream every night. Why not take that time you spend dreaming and do something productive with it? Okay. If nothing else, you can enjoy your time of sleep. And most people, don't even think about how much time they spend sleeping. If you're just the average person and you sleep 8 hours out of the 24 hours in your day, that's a third of your life gone. Why? We can do so much more. And I think the key to evolving, our understanding in this field of study is to explore more unconventional means in order to grow the community, because we cannot, if you don't have an appropriate sample size, you cannot draw accurate conclusions about the population as a whole. So that was my intention in creating such a clickbaity title. I want to get as many people as possible, but for good reasons. It wasn't because I'm making money off of this.
Nothing
right?
wrong with clickbait
followers
in these social media days.
So I mean, I'll own up to it.
Whatever reaches the most people, that's the goal. That's the goal. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the largest lucid dreaming experiment on the internet.
Let's make it happen. That's my approach, right? It may not be true, and you can fact check me all you want, but we are going to make it happen. Okay. As a lucid dreamer, I believe in the power of expectation. Okay. And when you believe something with your heart and soul and you care passionately about it, you can really do anything, guys. And that's the beauty of our mind, right? Is it really depends on, how much you believe it. And so 3,000 people responded to a poll that lasted less than 48 hours. Out of 3,000 people, 2,000 expressed interest. And it blew up way bigger than I could have ever possibly imagined. And given the nature of an online experiment, the best medium I could think of to really do some research was sending out surveys, right? Because it took no effort at all to click a button and say, yes, I'm interested. No, I'm not interested, or maybe I need some more information. Then a light bulb went off in my head. What can I do to make a survey just as quick and as efficient as clicking that poll? So that just as many people who subscribed here are going to do the same thing for this survey. And so I started drafting a quick, short but effective demographic survey that also focused on factors like sleep hygiene and experience, right? Just a general catch-all for confounding variables that may, lead to varying experiences when it came to dreams. And my intention behind this first experiment is to start with the foundational principles of lucid dreaming, like keeping a dream journal, and to determine, is one method of dream journal more effective than another? So if I were to formulate my hypothesis now, I would argue, right, or hypothesize that a physical notebook will yield higher dream recall than any other method. I've got plenty of research to back that up.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. But it's like there's still factors for me of like making it easier. So that's why I use the hybrid method, and that works the best for me. But if the hybrid method includes writing it down on paper first, and that's what makes me remember the most. So I don't disagree. I just feel like it goes deeper because everybody's got their own ways of tweaking it and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the voice recording method is for me, is kind of equivalent if like for writing it down in that first initial step.
For me, a physical dream journal offers you a lot more, let's say, maneuverability. You can customize it. You can personalize it. You can write things about your day and keep it in a different area than your night, and in like a more physical way. You can draw pictures, which have been linked to higher, faculties of memory. You can incorporate color. If you use an app, you're stuck with whatever structure that app designer set for
That's
you.
true.
You're limited. So it may be efficient, but is it really the most effective? That's what I was
So
trying
I
to
guess it
test.
depends on what you're going for, like what your goal is for dream journaling. Because for me, effectiveness, how I in my practice determine effective is how much detail can I write? How much can I remember? Because I like details. I put in what shirt everybody was wearing. Like I put in as many details as I can freaking remember down to like the smallest thing. That's how I do it. And when I use only a physical journal, I can't go into that many details. I can't write everything. I write a framework so that I can remember the dream and replay it in my head later. But when I'm typing, I'm like details. I go back and I type it in later. And then the other thing for me that I consider effectiveness is like being able to like organize my dreams and search back easily, because that's a big part of my practice.
Let me argue this, right? IKEA's entire business model is making you build their own furniture. It's cheaper. It's more cost effective for the company, and then they create this sense of sentimental value because you have to be the one to build it. So you're not just gonna build a desk and put all that effort into it just to get rid of it to grab another piece of furniture. If what you're using works, that's sort of how I think about it. Because if you buy a desk that was made by somebody else, you don't have that entire experience sort of binding you to the item, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does.
Because for me, at least beginning, my physical dream journal became less of a routine and more of a ritual. I started, incorporating it into my waking life. I started personalizing it. And then like if I neglected my dream journal, I felt like I was neglecting, myself in a way. It wasn't just, neglecting my dream practice. But guess what? This is what the experiment is for.
Exactly.
Let's allow science to
Let's
do
see
its
what
thing.
happens. Yeah. I do think writing it down is like one of the best way, like for recall. You can build on that. You can adjust it just depending on what your personal goal is, because I'm so pro like personal journey. But like you said, stay tuned if you're listening to this, what the experiment will reveal just for scientific purposes, and you can use that to build your own practice.
So it's really simple, guys. Anybody can be a part of this experiment. You do not have to be a lucid dreamer. You don't have to remember your dreams. Anybody, anywhere who hears this or wants to be involved, if you have a friend or a family member, a coworker, anybody that you think might be interested, please share this with them, because we need as many people as possible. That's why I'm here today. And I don't want anybody to feel like, well, I don't speak this language. I don't have this social media site, right? I've done my best to offer it across many different platforms and to catalog the entire process of recruiting quality candidates, right? I consider it like 4 phases in terms of if you want to be involved, right? You have to apply first. And the way you apply for the experiment is you can either follow it on Reddit. It's r/LD_experiment. And that's just the subreddit for where you can go to find information on that platform. Or what I would say is the more engaging experience is going to be on Discord. Okay. And that's actually invite only. I've really done my diligence to avoid any sort of internal bias, especially for me. Right.
Yeah.
Again, I'm only human. So anybody who wants to criticize, my method in terms of recruiting participants, I'm all ears. Let's make it better. Let's scratch this whole thing. We'll start over next month. Right. But this experiment is designed to be super simple and take no more than 5 minutes of your time in the morning every day you wake up for a month straight. So if you've ever had any interest in your dreams, proving whether or not you remember your dreams, learning more about lucid dreaming, be a part of scientific research, just joining a sense of community, right? Those are all great reasons to get involved. Please, we need as many people as possible. And trust me, it's going to be super easy for you to follow along. You can literally just follow along if you're curious. You can join any of those social media platforms and just see what's going on, or you can apply and become a participant, right? So let me go back to those 4 steps. So the application, that's just literally going to those social media platforms and saying, hey, I'm interested. That's it. Somebody will get in contact with you. We've got a whole social media crew who handles that sort of stuff. Next step after application is registration. You have to fill out the pre-screening survey. We call it the pre-qualification survey because you're not guaranteed to be involved because you fill out a demographic, survey about your personal relationship with lucid dreaming. And then the next step is validation, right? Because these are online surveys. How do we know it's one person per survey? What methods are we using to keep that under control? And then verification. So the last step is essentially you've completed all the other steps and you're in compliance with my process. Okay, so it's 4 phases. You basically get each role as you go through. And I want to encourage anybody to apply because we are trying to accept everybody. There's only like a few things that can get you disqualified. If you're not going to take it serious, I want to get a lot more people because it's going to be, a lot more reliable results. But if you're not going to take it seriously, if you can't follow basic instructions, then this isn't for you. Okay, we can have fun. This should be a personal journey as much as it is a personal research project, right? And the ultimate goal is lucidity, but that's not what we're testing for here. Okay, so really, I just want to encourage anybody who's interested to look into it. Okay, you can go to Reddit, search LD_experiment, or you can find us on Discord. That's going to be invite only though. Okay, so if you're on major servers like Omni Lucid or Dream Cafe, it's posted there. Go find it. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how the experiment's going to work and just a rough layout of the design. Okay, because many people on the original post, at first it was like, I'm interested. Oh my God, this sounds like a great idea. I can't wait to be involved. Can't wait to learn more about lucid dreaming. This is what I've been waiting for. I need somebody to remind me that more people are doing this with me and I'm not so alone. Like that is what inspires me truly. Like when I hear that, I can help somebody rediscover this personal journey, right? As long as you're safe and not letting it consume your life, right? Then you can really learn so much about yourself and your personal relationships and just many, many more benefits to lucid dreaming. I'm sure Amina has done a great job of, listing on her podcast throughout, all of her great guests.
Yeah.
So if my ultimate
true.
Goal is to create a sense of community, teach more people about lucid dreaming, build a solid foundation,
You're
and
doing
produce
it.
results in the term of lucidity, guess what? We're doing it.
We're
Right
doing
now, 15 have had a lucid dream in our server on Discord in 8 days. Okay, statistically, thank you. I'm very proud. Guess what?
I'm proud.
16 if you count me.
There
I
you
just had
go.
my first lucid dream last night, and I've only been trying for a week. And out of that week, 2 days I didn't remember any dream recall. I always say the first day you will not remember anything.
Yeah.
Second day you might, but probably not. If you have no dream recall, not gonna happen. Third day though,
Sometimes it takes
happens.
a week. I tell people just, see what happens.
It could take months. I always tell people there's no timeline for this. It
Yeah,
really
it's a
is extremely
lifelong
personal.
journey. Should be lifelong.
You know, that's sort of how it started for me. And really, the critics have driven me to take it to a whole nother level. At first, it was just a poll, seeing who was interested, and then they started bringing these real academic concerns, and
That's
they needed
great.
to be
You listen
addressed.
to the community. That is really good here. That is what, makes it really like special in my opinion. Is like the community helped put it together,
I don't own this project. It's bigger than me now, right? So many people have showed an outpouring of support that I needed their help. I needed the criticism. I needed the feedback. I needed to hear where my weaknesses were. And guess what? My argument became stronger because of those
Mhm.
people. So thank you
That's great.
truly from the bottom of my heart for giving me input. And anybody who has a problem with anything I lay out here in terms of design, message me. My username is Night Owl, but it's spelled funny. Okay, it's
I'll
spelled
put all the
using
links in the description.
Latin. Okay, I want to be a little incognito, so it's not going to be so easy to find me. But for those with eyes who see, okay, it is there. All right, so if there's a will, there's a way. But my point is, I tried my best to address every concern. I got into these heated debates, so I had to reevaluate my approach, and I'm very pleased with the end result. Let me be clear. This is not my personal research project anymore. It's a personal research project in a sense that anybody can do it and learn more about their personal relationship with their dreams. And the reason is because it's actually going to be set up in a way that we explore whether one dream journal method is more effective than another in the form of daily surveys that you fill out upon awakening. Okay. And then what we'll do is we're actually going to take each individual participant in our study as their own unique case study. And that person is going to be their own, their own control, their own variables throughout the length of a month. And they're going to
I like
explore
that.
what works for them. Let me just go further and say, just because we're doing case studies doesn't mean we can't draw larger conclusions that can apply to the population as a whole.
Mhm.
And the way we do that is by limit confounding variables, right? So the demographic, sleep hygiene, and experience survey, right, that you need to fill out to officially register as a participant, right,
Mhm.
is essential to separating confounding variables and creating like subgroups. Okay. So let's say age, because what I found in preliminary data analysis, right? And the best part about this experiment is everything's open, guys. You can tell me if I messed up somewhere. You can tell me if I manipulated data or introduced bias anywhere, because guess what? We're in phase 0 of experiment 1. My vision for this is to have many experiments that delve into the various methods of lucid dreaming, right? But this is just the first and possibly the most important one. And it could be overlooked by more advanced lucid dreamers, but phase 0 is the screening process. So anybody can fill it out, but we're going to sift through the serious candidates, and our survey is designed to do that effectively. Then we're going to analyze like subsets of data so that we can limit confounding variables, let's say by age. And again, what we found in preliminary data analysis is that as you grow older, at least, it goes like the main people in our demographics are 18 to 24. Then slightly less percentage is 25 to 34. And then even less is 35 to 44. And then nobody in our study so far is above the age of 45. So what's that tell you? That might mean that as we grow older, we at least care less about lucid dreaming, right? And I have my own theories for why that is, but that's just one of the things we found. So it might be worth separating people based on age demographics. And so that's sort of how I'm going to approach the phase 0 screening process, right?
Mhm.
And then next week, we start phase 2. You can be involved whenever you want, actually. I'm not going to limit candidates because we need numbers, right? So I've
Yeah.
designed it in a way that you can just hop in whenever you want, as long as you fill out the daily survey every single day as soon as you wake up, no matter what. That is
Yeah.
by far, hands down, the most important thing. So how can we get people to do that? First of all, we're going to make it as streamlined, as efficient as possible, short, sweet survey with, measurable data. And so every question I have can be quantified in a way that it can be represented on a graph, right? And then the individual can be studied for their own, trends as well as conclusions we can draw about the group as a whole. Okay, so phase 0 is designed to set all of that up. Phase 1 is baseline. Now, this might seem very boring to somebody like Amina who's actually participating. Okay. Baseline means we're not going to dream journal. We're dropping all methods, no dream journal. The only thing I'm going to ask people to do is to wake up and fill out that survey. And if you can do that every day for a month, you can be a part of the experiment. Okay. And the reason we do that is because we're actually establishing a baseline. And the reason people can apply at any time, even past the initial registration window, is because we're going to be staggering baselines. So let me explain what that means. The design of my study is using daily surveys to conduct personal case studies around dream recall frequency and which methods are most effective. First phase is a baseline where we got to establish what it's like for you if you don't remember any dreams at all whatsoever, because you're not dream journaling. Somebody like Amina is probably still going to remember her dreams even if she doesn't write a single thing down, right? And on average, you're supposed to, if you're getting quality sleep, you're supposed to have 4 or 5 dreams a night. I think that's correct.
Yeah, I still remember less than usual if I don't write it down, but I might remember something. We'll see.
So we gotta use each baseline as like their own control. And then we're going to have a separate group of people who serve as the control for the larger group. So that's going to be family and friends, right? Get your family and friends involved. Tell them what you're doing. This shouldn't be some hidden cult, right? Like, what are you doing? Why are you following instructions from some stranger online? I've heard all types of stuff about why dreams are demonic and everything else, but guess what? It's a natural phenomenon, as is lucid dreaming, and you should be willing to share with the people you care about what you're doing and why you're involved. And if they want to learn more about it, invite them to be involved. They can literally not do anything other than fill out my survey every day. And they'll be the control for the larger group. Okay. But everybody will be their own control. Phase 0, pre-screening. Phase 1, baseline. No dream journal method, just a tally mark. Anywhere. Just, I remembered one dream, one tally mark. I remember no dreams, big old X. That's it. Anybody can do that. Okay. Phase 2. Now we're getting spicy. We're going to randomize the method that we do first with different subsets, right? So age bracket 1 is going to have their physical dream journal first because they're probably used to using an app. It's going to be randomized though. And then let's say subset group 2, the next age bracket is going to use the app. Okay. And then we're going to go into phase 3, which is back to baseline, right? And the reason we do that is because we want to prove an effect, right? If you know anything about ABA design, right, which is what I just listed, phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. ABA design means baseline in phase A, method or test in phase 2, and then back to baseline to prove the effect. But instead of ABA, I'm going to do A, B, A, C, A, D. And every letter that's different than A represents a different dream journal method. Let's say B is a physical dream journal. C is the app or digital notes on your computer. D is a voice recorder, right? So it's the magic method because we're testing every method for each individual to see what works for them personally. Everything that has happened so far has been beyond all expectations. And again, it's grown into something that I would consider to be more of a community of people who want to serve as a pool of participants for all future lucid dreaming research. We need that. We need people who not only want that and want to be involved, but can also attain lucidity. So we're not just studying dreams, we're going to delve into deeper levels of lucid dreaming experiments, right? But how do we do that if people don't become lucid? There's a stat that 20% of people who attempt to lucid dream are able to do so once a month. So if you consider yourself an advanced lucid dreamer, I'm curious to know, how often do you lucid dream? Amina, I'm just wondering, if you tried, would it take you a month?
Honestly, like I would say on average, without trying, I lucid dream like once a week, which I feel like is pretty good compared to the average
That's
citizen.
amazing.
If I
Oh my
try
God.
and I'm not smoking weed, like if I'm smoking a lot of weed, like yeah, once a month maybe. But if I'm like, which I'm getting into that point now where I'm trying to quit completely, I've cut back a lot. Like I only smoke like 1 or 2 days a week now, which is good for me. I used to smoke all day, every day, you know? I'm getting there. It's not easy at all, as you know. But if I'm like no smoking and I'm really on top of it and I'm involved in the community and I'm doing my podcast and I'm trying to get, you know, my best self, which I'm getting there.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, I could lucid dream every day if I wanted to. I'm pretty confident about that, but I don't want to necessarily.
Hands
I let
down.
it happen naturally, but I would say on average 1 to 3 times a week for me. Like that's where I'm at.
And that's maybe the best part of keeping a dream journal, right? You can quantify data from your dream journal. You can turn anything that you can put into words, and you can translate it to code and put it on a graph if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But, for me, I would say maybe 6 weeks of intentional effort, right? On average, because I know how long it takes me to really like build some healthy habits around sleep. May that be, consuming recreationally alcohol or caffeine, or, staying up late and watching TV, whatever it may be. 6 weeks is how long it would take me. And it can be a little elusive, it could be elusive, but it really depends on your personal belief. Like, you were so convinced that you could lucid dream every day if you want to. Like, it gave me goosebumps. Like, I was like, dang, what would that be
if I
like?
wanted to? But I'm stopping myself because I know there's so many factors. But when I first got back into it, it took me about a month or two to really have my first lucid dream in years, because I used to have them as a kid and in high school. And then once I got back into it a couple of years ago, it took me about a month or two of dream journaling. And I was like smoking a lot of weed at the time and stuff like that. So it was a very short lucid dream. It was like 2 seconds long. But then I learned about stabilization and dream control and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
There's so much to learn about it.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
So I don't want anybody to feel like you have to know anything to be involved, because we're starting at the easiest thing. Which is what Mr. Wright told me when I was in his class, right? I call him Mr. I told you so. I want to say that anybody can do it, because everybody dreams every single night, whether you know it or not. And I can prove it. Just keep a dream journal.
Love it.
Most people would say any method at all. Just record your dreams. Put it in your phone. Write it in a dream journal, your diary, a piece of toilet paper, and a crayon. Okay, just do it. Do it. Yep. Trust me.
Literally.
If you keep the habit up, you will be amazed with your results. And actually, it's so funny that, the preliminary data has shown so many outliers. Like, we've got people who self-describe themselves as omni-lucid dreamers, who claim to become lucid every night without trying. And the medical explanation for that is they enter REM sleep much sooner than the average person, which is about a 90-minute sleep cycle to enter REM. Right. And it's like, our understanding of even sleep has evolved so much recently. We used to think that dreams only occurred during REM. And now you can dream anytime. Like, where did we blur the lines? And then we can get into the research later. But that's just a couple of examples of how I've, separated subsets of data. Like those two, I have two particular that I'm working with closely. Those two are in a class of their own. Actually, if I could just tell you a little bit of the scope and vision of my experiment. They are having a completely parallel experiment, completely closed off to the public. That's super secret and nobody knows about.
I love it.
I mean, we need to talk more about how
we need to talk more about it. I want to get in on that, because being lucid in every dream you've ever had, that is definitely something worth talking about in the lucid dreaming community. You would think that that's everybody's, they're going to eat it up. You think that's everybody's goal. Like, I want to be lucid in every dream, but you'd be surprised. There might be some pros and cons. So we're going to definitely get involved with them and start talking about what that is actually like.
So just kind of like a sneak peek, we're going to have the Omni dreamers. And how do you prove that? I mean, how do you prove lucidity? Right. And we can talk about how Stephen LaBerge did it forever ago, or Keith Hearn. Right. And, really get into their method. But again, they were the outliers in my original pool. So I got to separate them, because if I map their data with everybody else, they're going to skew graphs crazy. So now we're going to do something where we have the Omni dreamers and advanced dreamers, and then people who claim they don't even dream at all. And we're going to have our own separate study over here in the lab. Whereas what we're doing on, our main hub on Discord is actually, it's called the Lucid Lab Rats. And actually we did a play on words with Stephen LaBerge, and it's called Lucid LaBerge Rats. And that was not a decision I made. Again, the community is in control. I'm just a host. Okay. So Lucid LaBerge Rats, if you can find us on Discord, then you still need an invite, just so you know. Why should you fill out the survey? Why should you volunteer your time and be involved? Because you are going to find immediate results for what works for you. You're going to be a part of scientific history, the largest ongoing online lucid dreaming experiment ever, right? And you're going to actually join a larger community that really does care about seeing the success of this project. Eventually, experiment 1 is going to come to an end. It's going to last a month long. So as long as you can fill out surveys every day, as soon as you wake up for a month straight, you will be invited to experiment 2. So stay tuned.